No. It is.
When we talk, we have common talk.
But I didn't think each comes true.
I think they record. They
And
recorded.
then live stream. Can't participate.
No, they participate.
But they can.
They can hear.
Yeah, they could, yeah.
Good thing I got an alarm on my phone because I completely forgot. I was thinking about it was a nap. The selfies.
You're like Fonzie there.
I have a friend that uses Alexa to remind her of all of her appointment schedules. Yeah, she swears by it. Yeah. He programs it for everything.
Was that because of you saying that?
Every getting
Yeah, you
Gotta look that
finally got
up.
into it. Huh? You two finally got into it, like a couple of old people married. Hi, Elaine.
Hello.
What is this? You don't have to give me.
Oh, it's for Sim.
Oh.
Yeah, this is her last meeting.
Alice was keeping on.
And then we'll sign it. We'll send it over to Ken so he can. Did you sign it?
Hi.
The card and send it.
Hi. Oh no. Eli, what happened?
Yeah, I was wondering too.
You don't have to answer.
You got beat up.
Hi, Bob. Come on in.
It sure is.
Oh.
He's just cold.
Oh, yes, scarf. Nice.
Is that just a scarf?
No,
No, it's a break. It's a support.
you're spreading rumors.
You want an agenda, Bob?
I forgot that.
You have the agenda. You have all of that stuff.
Got all that.
All right, we'll put it back.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I don't know what I get. I just gave you the award letter
And
and.
Chris hydration.
I know. And I had Trust me, I'm a movement. Hey, Jim.
Jamie, would you like to send
Here we
the
go.
cards from Cynthia? This is her.
That was,
Yeah.
that was.
Yes.
So I'm starting a petition to ban all left-hand turns at non-signal intersections.
Oh, the street stuck on Pleasant Street. Oh, you mean.
No, there was just another accident
Yeah.
on Elm Street, turning left onto Winston, area come out. So I think if we're gonna put concrete barriers between Cumberland Farms and Alpine, let's put them everywhere. No left on Pleasant, no left on Upland, no left off the wood. If you think about it, most accidents like that happen because of the left one.
I think it's big cars only go straight or backwards.
Yeah, everyone just has to,
So radical.
No left, it should be like NASCAR, right? Doesn't NASCAR, no, they drive to the left.
they go always left.
So we should, the car should be made to only drive to the right. Take it up with your buddies at, like Workford Ford.
Jim, this is the
There's
first
a
room that I
reason
met
cars
with.
have left-hand turn signals right now. I know, well, apparently people don't know.
Yes, I guess we are.
We have to, you know, you can't fix stupid, right?
Okay,
That's what
folks.
signs up for.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular meeting of the Upper Charles Trail Committee. And we will call the meeting to order. So first, I'd like to start off with questions and comments from the public. And hello, everybody. We just have a few more folks joining us, so we'll wait a minute till folks get settled. So we have two folks in the audience. Would you like to share a comment or a question? the committee at this time?
I have nothing specific other than to say here at your request. You can send out a few requests asking for me to fill out, which I did after talking to folks. I also reached out to the select board, given the vote at town meeting, to get some guidance from them on whether or not I should show up for the meeting. Hearing nothing from them, I decided that it was probably a nice thing to do to attend.
Okay, thank you. We're pleased to have our chair of the select board, Amy Ritterbush, with us. Amy, would you like to share a few comments or questions? at the
I'm
beginning?
just here today to listen, so, we want to know what your reaction to the vote from me and how you just get to.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Madam Chair, before we start, can I ask a question? Isn't Efren the,
Yeah, she's on the Zoom.
He's on the call.
is he?
Hi, Efron, he's just,
Hello.
there he is.
Hello.
He is here.
All right, cool.
Okay, so we've, item number 2 is out of the way. Number 1 is out of the way. So we will start off, with the elections of the chair, the vice chair, and the treasurer. The reason why I put this on the agenda, is because I heard from, not at the town meeting, but again, at the select board meeting on 5/9, especially at the town meeting, that folks were not happy with the confident, I'll use the word, leadership of the Upper Charles Trail Committee. And as I explained to folks, there is a process that committees follow through our town charter. There's a process the select board follow, appointing members. And one of our processes is that we do elect our officials at the, this time of the year. This seems like a timely conversation to have. So with that, we can take motions for officers. We can start off with chair, we can do vice chair, we can do treasurer. We'll take a first or second. We'll have a discussion. People can accept or not accept. Then we can take other nominations if folks are interested in doing that. So that's normally the process that we follow through our town
I
charter.
nominate Jane Moran as chair because, as I said last time, nobody else is crazy enough to do it.
That's
I'll
where the
second
quote
it.
came.
I have confidence in James today.
All right, so there's a first and a second. Is there, yes, well, now a discussion.
Well, no more,
No, we can,
more nominations. He gets more.
Right, so additional nominations can be made.
yeah, additional nominations can be made.
I suggest, Nels,
No.
as chairman of the Upper Charles Trail.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Scott. Is there a second?
Am I allowed to second?
Mm,
Yeah, so
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 voting members here, I think.
Madam Chair, may I ask
Clarification.
Scott, do you desire being chair?
I'd be happy to be chair.
Okay,
Just asking if you accept the nomination.
okay. Thank you. But I think to your question, Jamie, I don't think you can vote because there's enough voting members here.
There's a quorum.
There's a quorum.
Okay.
Trying to say something? I'm not sure.
Irfan, are you? Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you have something to say?
I'm following along.
Okay. Okay, I accept the nomination too. So we call for a vote.
So there was
So
no.
wait, there was no second.
Oh, I'm-
There's no second.
There's no second, so he's
I thought I
not.
heard a second.
No, you didn't.
Oh,
I heard a second.
We
I
asked.
wanted to.
no,
but
I think,
was
you know
told
what,
I'm not
we're
allowed to.
confusing it. I think Scott said he was willing to accept it.
I
Okay.
can't second my own self.
Why?
I'll second
I'll
it.
second it alone.
I'll second.
I don't know why you couldn't. Okay,
That's the second.
I don't think.
huh? I don't know, ask the Blaine official.
I don't know.
I do. You can't second yourself.
No,
Right.
I can second
Well,
it.
for the purpose
If
of,
that was the case, you wouldn't need a second.
well,
yeah, exactly. No, but I made
Oh.
the motion.
Jim,
I apologize. I don't know you, I don't think. I'm Jim.
Tim.
Tim, are you?
I'm an alternate member also.
You're not there. Okay, thanks.
All right.
Someone's missing one.
Sin.
Sten said she was going
So
to
we have a quorum.
be able to come late. She's in another meeting right
So
now.
we have a quorum.
Okay, we have a nomination
Yeah.
that's been seconded and accepted. I call for a vote for Jane Moran as chairman.
Are we not, is there no one that wants to second?
No,
There wasn't a
I,
second.
I seconded Scott.
Okay, so from.
or from second.
Okay.
All right.
You still have to vote one at a
Okay.
time.
Let's start with a roll call vote. Jim,
Which.
you're gonna pick one of the two.
Aren't you gonna do a motion to select? I vote for Jane. You can vote for yourself.
I am voting for myself.
Jane,
Jane.
Jane. Can you vote for yourself?
For Scott.
all right, 5-2, Jane wins.
Is there-
Oh,
Yeah.
her
As a
part.
voting member, I'm voting for Scott, and I just want to explain the vote. It's basically the town meeting, vote was loud and clear. It's not that I don't support Jane, I absolutely do. But, town meeting vote was pretty clear, and, they were looking for new leadership, so that's why I'm voting for Scott.
Okay.
Score is Jane 5, Scott 3.
I got a comment,
Yeah, I want to make a comment after you make it.
which is,
Yeah, so
I'm not clear as to why we're voting down, let's vote that in June after memberships get reappointed. And, after, well, there may be a new composition of the committee then, and it seems to me that voting now is to shut that out. And I don't know that I think that's appropriate.
as I explained in the beginning, and you can speak to this, Jim, as well. To Irfan's point, the town meeting spoke loud and clear that they were not confident with the leaderships, but it's this committee's decision to vote their own leadership. It's the select boards. It's,
Can I speak?
no, but it's the select board's responsibility to appoint members.
It's the chairman's responsibility to determine what the makeup of the committee is. The select board doesn't appoint members. They appoint members.
Yeah, absolutely.
They appoint members. That's correct. They can either remove a member during their term for an actionable reason, or they can wait till the end of the next term, right? Now, I think that, in my case, I'm appointed by, as the liaison to Congress. We didn't have a vote. We voted for all of our opportunities. I don't know why we have to vote today, but I understand, there are major reasons to. As far as the public, can you imagine running our town government by popular vote at town meeting? I mean, frankly, I don't like some committees, so the makeup of some other committees. But I don't dream that I can go to town meeting with a petition and say, I want you to dismantle the housing authority, whatever non-elected things. I can't imagine doing that, and then but my friends there say, yeah, we don't like that committee. Select board change the committee in the middle of the path, middle of the stream, whatever. So anyway, if we're gonna vote tonight, to me, it's a vote of confidence. I don't, yes, I hear what the parents said or whatever, but what holds weight with me is this charge right here and what the committee has done thus far, and the leadership of the committee. Just because people don't like somebody is not a reason to.
It's not a matter of.
If the select board wants to change things when appointments are up, God bless you,
Thank you.
including.
The bottom line is we have voted. Jane has 5 votes, Scott has gotten 3 votes. Jane is now our chairman.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
We would be expecting to revote committee leadership after reappointments, correct? This wouldn't be blocking.
We do it annually. Right?
We do it in.
Well, but it's usually done like when there's, because how many people's terms are up soon?
Well,
Like, it would be,
4 people.
if,
yeah,
for example,
so,
Jane didn't want to do it anymore, or was not reappointed, then obviously we do chairmanship open.
well, but if we vote usually after appointment,
Excuse
And
me,
there's-
what is that background noise?
It's,
I think it's the committee.
We do it annually.
Is it Irfan?
So last year, when was
Irfan,
that?
can you mute yourself if you're,
June.
because we're getting a lot of background noise from you. Thank you.
What are you saying? That-
It seems like when people are about to like age off the committee,
I
it
think
makes
that
sense
might
to.
But we're all
a
different.
question for the town charter. And if, as you say, there are 3 PIP members coming up for reappointment, I again go back to the select board members. If they do not want to reappoint those members, that's their priority. That's their
But then
prerogative.
they don't get to vote on the leadership.
So, but
Well, then the leadership would have to get revoked.
So
to
you're
get
gonna
the
vote?
leadership changed.
Uh-huh.
Obviously. No, I mean, if it was 3 members are not the chairman, they got replaced.
And-
It wouldn't be a revote, that's correct.
It would not be a
No, this
revote.
is
Fine.
Chair, vice,
Excuse
or
me,
treasurer.
excuse me, one person talking at a time. The way I understand it is, this is an annual meeting. If the makeup of the committee votes, or changes, every decision that we would make, if the committee changes over and, just if I was still chair, but the committee character changes and people are not in favor of what is going on, they would outvote whatever would be going on. Yeah, you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, can I ask a
It's
question?
a democracy. This is our form of government, democracy. Sometimes it gets messy, but
Can I ask an informational clarification question? It's an annual vote, and I totally
it's an
understand
annual
it.
vote.
Was it a year ago that we took the vote?
No.
It was in June, but
It was less than a year ago.
And is the
it's anytime.
reappointment of the 3 members that we're talking about being reappointed soon, somewhere between that and now?
Yes.
And did you schedule the meeting early to make sure that they get the 3 new, if there are 3 new
Well,
members,
that's
that they would be able to vote?
consequence.
Or did we schedule the meeting now just to get it over with? Because
Absolutely.
Well,
Excuse me, that's a fair question, and I seems like this is my thing to answer, I believe, because my integrity is on the line here. I believe that I am, and I've said it, this will be the 3rd time I've said it tonight, I am responding to the vote of the town citizens at the annual town meeting. It's to make up this committee to vote our own leadership. Currently, this is our members. We have to respect that. We don't know what's going to happen in a month when the select board either reappoint or don't reappoint other members. We just do not know. You can't, so I am trying my best to do a balancing act here, with,
but it's not like we'd be chairmanless for the next month.
excuse me.
It's still be chairman.
Right.
To be the chair last year, when I was appointed, you waited until I was on the committee to do
It was,
my very first meeting. Yeah.
it could be. I do not remember. But that last year, we did not have an annual town meeting as contentious as this one.
Absolutely.
I am absolutely listening. I heard the voice of the town meeting and I put this on the agenda. There is no alternative motive here except to put it out to the citizens. Yes, I've heard you. The comment loud and heard was, you're not listening to me. Well, I did. We all listened. We
Well,
heard.
wait, but they didn't ask for a vote. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Through the chair.
All right, one person at a time. Irfan.
So I just want to reinforce what Jane is saying here. Town meeting voted to change the course of, change the leadership of the committee. Jane has put this as the first thing on the agenda, and I think she spoke about this at town meeting as well, that we'll be, voting for, leadership within the committee at our next meeting. So that's what we're doing here. We're deciding who is going to be, the chair, who's going to be the vice, and so on and so forth. So I think that's about as transparent as it can get. You put it on the agenda and everyone voted. As
Thank
far
you.
as who the select board is going to reappoint, I can't speak to all 5 members. I can speak for myself, so I can't speak to the other 4, but okay, but it's a difficult situation because, the town meeting vote was pretty overwhelming. And for us to just continue on, is a little bit disingenuous, I guess, in my mind. You voted, and it sounds as though we have, Jane has been reelected as the chair. So there we go. So now the select board is going to have to deal with reappointing, and I don't know what's going to happen there.
Okay, thank you. I would like to move on.
But I can clarify briefly, but it's.
Nominations for vice chair.
Jane,
Yes.
I do have, can I ask a question, please, before we do that and before you, who is up for reappointment? You are, Eric.
Vice chair.
No.
Eli
He
Ryan,
needs-
Oh, for reappointment. No, I
Bob
thought-
and yourself, but you're.
And then Cynthia's
And
last
stepping
meeting.
down.
Right. Okay, so Cynthia is stepping up as a CEO, right, which the select board will fill.
It's a Parks and Rec designation.
Oh, you're the Parks and Rec liaison, so Parks and Rec will appoint somebody else, right?
Yes.
So full members, not liaisons, are Eric, and Eli.
I'm not up for reappointment.
Oh, you're not. So you're CPC leader?
No.
He is CP.
Oh, you're
I'm
not.
not- I am
I
I
think
am-
it's you, Jim.
I am the libraries person,
Okay.
library
All right, well,
commission, CPC.
all right.
I am
So-
a at-large member of this board.
I was gonna say, so if Jane, you're up for reappointment, then, I would probably feel that we should wait. But since that's not the case,
I think it might be you.
I'm up, yeah. Right.
It's you, Eli and Bob.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, I think we should move on. Nominations for vice chair. Open. Do you have a?
No.
No nomination?
I'll nominate Eric Sonnet for vice chair.
I accept.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any other nomination for vice chair? Okay,
I'm going to nominate Scott.
I'm gonna decline respectfully or from, thank you.
okay, call for a vote. We'll start over there with Jim.
Right.
Sim? Eli?
Yes.
Scott?
Nay.
Eric?
Yes.
Jane is a yes. Bob?
Yes.
Ken?
No.
Okay. So it's Jane, Eric, and treasurer. Nominations for treasurer.
I nominate Scott.
I respectfully decline. Thank you.
Anyone else? Would, any other nominations for treasurer?
I nominate, well, you,
I'm paired by the SEC to try to remain.
Is that a yay or a nay?
nominate.
Point of order, there's no fun vote on that,
Where's the
vice chair.
I don't want to do it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, I nominate Bob Snyder.
I'll second that. Bobby, you good with that?
Well,
I nominate Barry Rose.
Is Elaine moving into this position? No. So do we need to take care of that position too?
No.
No, she's
She's
secretary.
I'm happy to replace it as no.
Yeah.
Always resign.
I nominate
Oh.
I nominate.
I can't even second those, Jim. All right, we have a nomination for Bob for treasurer. Bob, do you accept?
Yes.
All right, was there a second on that?
Second.
Yeah, who made the first?
Well,
Eric nominated.
Yeah, I'll
Eric
second.
nominated,
I'll second.
Jim
second.
second, so we'll start over there with Jim.
Aye.
Cynthia, Eli, Scott,
Abstain.
okay,
Yes.
Jane is a yes, Bob,
Yes.
Jen. Okay,
Yes.
yes, okay,
And what was Irfan's vote on the vice chair?
thank you. Irfan, what was your vote on the vice chair?
No. Hey, no. Can you hear me?
Nay.
Nay.
So you didn't vote for me, okay.
Nothing against you. Again, it's just,
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right, moving on. Discussion review of the Upper Charles Trail charge. The reason I framed this was from the 5/9 select board meeting that we had, where I thought it was very helpful that I believe it was the chair of the select board suggested that people come up with suggestions that might be helpful to the select board to consider if is any wordsmithing to the charge going forward in a positive manner to help make this committee function. I guess in a manner that might have been more responsive to town meeting. I don't know, helpful suggestions, and we could. So this charge was sent out, and it is quite thorough and very intentful in its purpose. And if this is what this is the path that we've been following. So I would entertain some thoughts. And I did hear some good ones. I mean, I could start it off if somebody else doesn't have a positive thought or a useful thought. But I thought, for instance, under the membership, where it speaks to folks who have experience in different areas, it might be useful to have a member that was useful in social media so that we could become more proficient in there. I think that that's, someplace where we could use some help in our committee, to have somebody with some positive, strong social media skills. And another area that I thought that might be useful, where did I write down? But those are I believe are the useful, positive things that might be helpful to the select board if they are going to consider our charge. I thought another one might be to actually put it in our charge that we report annually, biannually to the select board, so that they could be more aware of what we're doing, so that doesn't turn into a brouhaha like it was allowed to turn into in the last, I would say, 2 years. This has been brewing. There are parent organization, like every other committee and board, and well, not board, I can't say that. Commissions and boards are under different authorities, but like every other committee in this town, we serve at the pleasure of the select board. And let's see if we can come up as a committee, some helpful things that we might think where we carried the brunt of this criticism for the last couple of years. How is it that we could, where we were to our best of our ability, we were following this charge to the best of our ability, but that's not what I want to get into. How can we take this language and make it better, more useful for our select board? So those are just two ideas. And so going around the table, Jim, do you have a suggestion? Or we,
I do. First, with respect to social media, I think the broad term public relations meant
Yeah.
something different 4 years ago, now includes social media or any avenue. The only thing I can think of is changing the makeup of the membership. That is to not necessarily expand beyond 9, but to add a liaison from or a designee recommended by some other committees in the town. Perhaps one of those is trail coordination committee. Perhaps one is housing or something. But to have other members designated by other committees.
I think that's a good idea.
CPC, I don't know if CPC needs a liaison.
TPC doesn't.
We got to kind of double duty. No, I mean to add it here as part of the membership. So I can see expanding the membership, not necessarily the 9.
It doesn't work that way. If CPC receives members, we do not,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
we do not give a member to CPC. I would change it that we did.
Okay. And the other thing is, and I would just say that I think it would be a big mistake to make at-large members voting members of any committee. Not just this one, but any committee. I think it would be a mistake. So if I'm just thinking of alternate members having voting authority, then you might as well just expand the number of people on the committee as voting members. And I think that's it for now. But I reserve the right to say more later.
Well, thank you. Very good.
I really balance on my time too.
Jim,
Also under membership, when you mentioned social media, my add-on there was the public outreach. And that's what we've been working so hard on, bringing on and having new members come aboard, is the whole process of public outreach from the get-go to the final, to the follow-ups. So I think social media should be expanded to public outreach. My other thought was on page 1, under the charge, last item on the page, number 10, guide construction of the Upper Charles Trail by working on design, permitting, funding, construction, and constructive collaboration. Might be a thought to put in there that our charge should really include collaborating in constructive ways.
and that was under number 10.
Yes. So just adding, my suggestion is constructive collaboration. And
Okay.
that was it.
Eli,
I echo what, Cynthia has said. A trail has a direct effect on people's lives. It goes by when their front yard or their backyard, and it influences their daily life. So our ability to reach out and interact is paramount.
I agree. Scott,
Yeah, I think the mix of members, is key. And I agree with, Jim's point. I think TCMC is a must. I have a point of clarification. Does a designee mean that they have to be a member of the Conservation Commission, Park and Rec, Board of Selectmen? Or
Recommended.
no,
It
that's
says
my,
recommended.
I mean, by definition, no, but maybe by intent, yes. So what's the,
Well, for example, in my case, if I didn't want to be the liaison and there were no other nominations in the committee, in the commission, then the commission could nominate somebody else.
Someone that technically would be at large, but doesn't have to be a.
No, they would be the voting liaison from Concord.
Yeah, they'd be liaison.
That's right.
Thank you. So I think, given that was my interpretation, I think we should encourage that, people don't have to be members necessarily, for example, Park and Rec, because, sometimes people sign up for volunteering of one committee and they don't
Yeah.
necessarily say, I'm signing up for two, right? So, they may or may not, I mean, Cynthia's been great, but they may and may not show up. So I think we should emphasize the fact that, if there are people in our community that are willing to be the liaisons and connect back to people like Parks and Rec and Conservation Commission, and I would argue other groups within our community or our town government, then I think we should exercise that. We should not require it.
Yeah, it's not required, and I think that, yeah.
Feels like it is.
Parks and Rec, well, it may feel that way, but it's not.
Well, I
I
think
know from my experience that it is not.
Good.
And so Parks and Rec London,
it would still come through Parks and Rec.
it would go to
They could
Parks and
go-
Rec.
It would still come
To
through Parks and
anybody.
Rec, but it could be, they could.
That's right, they can make.
I'm
some-
not a member.
So
Anybody.
meet with Parks and Rec once every 2 months and you're good to go. Thank you. That's it.
Jamie.
Oh, wait a
I think we're-
minute. Can we ask Jamie?
Bruce, do you have a question?
No,
I have
well,
a
we're
question.
getting to.
I have a
we're going
question, but
around
not on
the
the same point. So if you want to talk about what's already open.
Oh, okay. I wonder if there should be clarity in the charge about number, like there's a couple numbers, right? 2 or 3 route options. One west of Hayden Road. But then there isn't the gathering input from the community. Verbiage is vague. There's 2 places where it talks about that. And so I wonder, and actually 3 places. And so I wonder if we should find ways to be more specific so that we can actually prove that we're meeting the charge.
Is that a question for us, are we, is that a question for the select board? Because this.
I thought we were
document-
talking about the,
We
We
are,
are,
we are.
but this is going to go to the select board for their thoughts and their
Okay.
review. So that
Jamie,
would
you're not
be,
suggesting we put routes or non-routes in the
no,
chart.
no, I'm saying things like,
So-
how do we quantify that we have met our charge if it's not clearly defined? Like you can't meet a goal that isn't clear, right? Or we could
With
vaguely
goals not
say,
clear?
We could recommend
so,
verbiage that's different.
Yeah, what's the? what's
all right,
the-
just one person at a time. Let's give Jamie a chance to, I think it's a good thought. And
to be more specific about what we're trying to do, because like the only place where it indicates as far as the public outreach is a townwide community visioning workshop. That's one visioning workshop, but everything else is pretty vague about public education, outreach, focus group, survey, like it's all pretty vague. And so there isn't specific quantifiable measures in there. And so it's hard to say if I can say what I think as far as meeting it, but I think it would be hard to prove that we've met it when there isn't a specific to it.
yeah, I don't,
So if we wanted to make
So-
it annual visioning workshop, or at least 3 surveys a year, like
you're
something like
looking for
that.
something more specific from the select board as
Well, that
guidance.
we could propose to the select board. That's the whole point of this conversation, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's good.
thanks.
Eric,
I'll go after Parker.
Bob,
Well, I kind of want to hear from Ken, but I'll just repeat that the biggest reason for me wanting to be part of this committee was to get a bikeable trail that connects Milford to Ashland. And I got the impression a little bit that we're talking about easing back on that goal because we've found that this is very hard to do. I think we've all found that to be true. But that's still very important to me. So I really want this thing to be a multi-use trail that connects Milford to Ashland. So I like Jamie's suggestion of perhaps building in a visioning workshop once a year or something. Wouldn't do any more than that because it's a lot of work that goes into those things, but I think that's a good idea. But let's keep working towards a bikeable connection between those two towns. It's part of a thing called the Upper Charles Trail, which is part of a thing called the East Coast Greenway, I guess, or whatever its name is.
That is true. I mean, this is part of a 5-town system and soon to be most likely 6 because Framingham is looking to join into this Upper Charles Trail. And that's what makes it a multi-use system. It's a bikeable path. And I think that's the charge that we've been given.
Actually, it's not in the church.
It is multi-use.
Multi-use.
Yes, it's not defined.
Well, that's the definition of a multi-use.
But it's a term of art to look on multi-use and transportation or recreational.
For bikers, runners,
Doesn't have one
skateboarders, it's multi-use.
Doesn't have to be for skateboarders.
Yeah, it's multi-use.
It's multi-use.
I would take issue.
It's gotta be for wheelchairs, scooters.
Anyway, moving on. Ken, did you have a comment?
Well, if we're gonna put this language in that multi-use implies skateboarders, then I don't think that should be part of the charge.
That's not what it's here, Ken. It says the charge is, it says it's multi-use.
Third paragraph.
Which is open to interpretation and doesn't necessarily imply the need for making a trail that's of use for skateboarders.
I think, to go back to the point, if we want,
You're
The
saying a paved trail then, because skateboarders don't go on stone dust trails. Now, are we gonna change the trail?
Neither does stroll.
Right now, strollers can go on stone dust.
excuse me, these are suggestions for the select board. Maybe we can just let them hash it out. But
We can let them hash it out, but if we're gonna make that part of the charge, I think the select board ought to be aware that that's what the implications are. If we're enabling, if we're requiring the trail to be for skateboarders, then we really are requiring a paved surface, in my opinion. I don't think that's a wise thing to consider. And it's not in the charge now. To add it now, I think would be a really bad idea, is what I'm saying.
Okay, Ken, can I just interject, this town just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars paying for a skateboard park at EMC Park.
Which is great.
Why would we not want to, this is getting a little off the track, but to the point, why would we want to not invite these kids who are at a vulnerable age throughout our neighborhoods to be able to skateboard to the EMC Park, to skateboard from high school after school? Why would we want to exclude this vulnerable population? Anyway, so we are offering these points to the select board and
Could we hear?
I just think that that's a really bad way to construe it. I mean, we've got other places in town where people can skateboard, namely the Loop Road. I've skateboarded on that myself. I don't feel a need to have the whole Upper Charles Trail, which has got lots of hills, to be skateboard capable. And I think that is really asking for trouble, and financially and geographically, making it much more difficult to accomplish the purpose. I'm confident that if that becomes part of our charge to make it skateboard capable, you're going to find a lot more opposition to this committee than we've already got. Now, that isn't even what I wanted to talk about, but this is my reaction to other comments here.
okay, would you like to continue with the original thought that you were going to speak
My
to?
original thought was to extend paragraph 4 to include markings on the ground for these options wherever feasible.
Markings and ground.
Well, I don't like the idea
What's
of there
allowed?
supposedly being route options when you can't go out in the field and tell where the route options are.
On the chart.
Oh, can you point that out again, Karen?
Okay, charge 4 there says outline and present 2 or 3 Upper Charles Trail route options for the Board of Selectmen considerations. One of which is located on the west side of Hayden Row. I have no objection to that, but I think it could be amended and to include markings on the ground for these options wherever feasible. Because I don't think right now, we've tried to do that, and I think it would be difficult for the select board or anyone else to make a decision as to where the trail can go if they can't go on into the field and see just what is being considered.
Excuse me, Ken, don't you think that that's a job for our committee as part of the
I think,
details that we do?
yeah,
We do it through VHB and our pre-feasibility studies already. We've gone out on many sidewalks on the ground and marked them with various markers. So this is what we've done. I don't know if it's implied by necessity.
we've got hardly any markings on the trail for any section of the trail right now. And I think it ought to be something that we should be doing, all I'm saying.
That's operational within the committee, that's not.
Yes,
Yeah,
Scott.
I think it could be satisfied with just, it may include also visual markings. I mean, just literally parenthetically, just including that, because I think it's a good point. Even though things are implied, to Ken's point, a lot of people, I don't know how many people have walked all the different alternatives that we've had, even the engineer hasn't, right? So I think that being able to mark
Most of them,
those,
but,
being able to mark those would be good to visually see them.
well, for instance, we've mowed them so that we could have
Some of them,
access
yeah.
when we've done pre-feasibility studies. We've actually gone through and marked the trees. We've had halt out there on different walks. And this is part of the operations that we do when we decide, when we identify a route. And in order to continue, whether we want it to be on the list, to be supported or not, to go before the select board. This is the work that we have done.
So you're
before.
saying it is going to happen regardless?
It just never has happened.
Oh,
except for.
I fell in the brush, putting up a marker.
Okay, so we're speaking of the campus connector. That's where you're talking about. That's the only place that I know of where.
McDermott Path, coming down from Hopkinton State Park down to East Main Street. We actually paid someone to go in there and mow that so that we could hike it. Yeah, the loop road. I mean, we have done that, Ken.
Wait, you said McDermott Path, that's campus connector, right? Where else were you saying?
Well, and
If we pay people to mow Methodist, or somebody has, I'm not sure who paid them to do that.
but I think to be fair, Ken, we
It's not
have.
worked on the ground, it's being proposed. Upper Charles.
Okay, so it's in the minutes. Elaine has captured it. I guess there is a request to have the select board add something to it to be specific, which I would like to point out, which we already have done and do, but they could certainly relook at it. That's what they've asked us to do, is to supply suggestive comments in a positive way. So yeah, we'll include that. Now, wait a minute, Tim.
I think I would attack charge,
How about address?
sorry. We're gonna attack this and win. We're gonna come up with a better
Constructive.
way of saying this. No, so it says that we shall have two.
Can you
or three-
identify what you're looking for?
Four.
Number
So track
four.
Outline and present 2 or 3 Upper Charles Trail route options. So my problem with that sentence, I think it was written before anyone had done a lot of thought about this. When they may have pictured that there's 2 or 3 completely different routes we can get through town on. We're having a lot of trouble finding a single route. However, there are certainly some segments where there are options. And I would like to maybe throw out segment choices instead of route choices, because route sounds like, oh, we have to give you route A and route B as complete projects, where I think it would be a lot better if then this is slightly separate. So I think it would be a really good idea to get the word segment in there,
Mhm.
segment options.
I
But
think that's a good update. Yep.
Route segment, so.
Cut through.
route segments,
Substitute
yeah.
segment.
Another option to think about, and this one
I don't know if the select board would even love this one. We could present those two, like, we could set up a better schedule of when those options are gonna be scheduled. And make it clear that we're not here to decide on that, that we are gonna present planning for two. Because I think sometimes when we are trying to find our way through town, people get really upset and they go, I can't believe you're gonna try and put a bike route next to my house, and think that because we've done the planning to see what it would take to do it, that we somehow aren't listening to them about it's impossible, where maybe we need to show two barely possible routes to come up with the better of the two. And without being able to finish some of that design work or the planning work, I don't want to say we like design the entire trail and have a picture of exactly what it's gonna look like. But I think there's times where it's worth pushing through an area of planning that is not favored by everybody in town at the same time, but just to have two choices, be able to go to the select board and let them make the choice. And so by doing whatever we can to make it clear that we are not building a bike path right now, we are planning segments of a bike path and hoping to build segments. And so I know the goal needs to be 100% a multi-use path through town that allows that to be, and anything else we can hopefully get on those. But cyclists and pedestrians have to be able to get from Ashland to Milford, but I don't think we need to focus on getting that entire route 100% designed before we go to the select board and have the two routes. And so I think if we have a more regular time of the select board voting, I think there's also an impression in town that we aren't subject to voters because we're the people who are still on the committee. And actually, I've been here for 2 months, a month and a half. But like, it's not like I ran opposed for the position. As positions open up, there isn't opposition oftentimes. So we are kind of on these committees for a long time because we're willing to do the work and have the experience to do the work, but we aren't subject to electors. And by giving the final choice to the people who have the electors and making it clear to people that, yes, we want your input, but these are the people who are going to make your decision when the time comes. I think just getting that balance just right. And I think by changing the charge to make it clear that we're planning segments that are going to be chosen by the select board. I don't know if we want to include any other choices that we want to give them, because there are a couple other choices that we've discussed in these meetings since I've been here that I know make a lot of people angry, and I've heard a lot of discussion on both sides. And by allowing the elected board instead of us now, the disadvantage of that is we're the ones that have the knowledge and experience, and if we don't convey that correctly to the board, they might make a mistake. So that can be kind of tough, but because it is our charge, and I think it's the right charge that we're the ones that are going to design this path in the end, through with the professionals. But making sure that the select board has some input so that we don't run into a situation, like you said, like where suddenly we hit a stop sign at the wrong time.
So a lot of what you said is already in the charge. I go back to my one thought that and I agree with you and I hear you. So what I threw out there was that we report to them maybe annually or biannually. Is there something that you can
So
take from that verbiage
Yeah.
to say maybe we go to them with each segment, or do we go with them on every 6 months to just say, okay, this is what we have been doing?
Right. So we're at an annual or biannual report sometimes just becomes this is what the map looks like right now. And everyone kind of goes, oh, okay, good work. Or, thanks for your hard work. And then we leave. And so that's like, to your point. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's not something we should not do anyway, because other than a fund, not necessarily everybody's going to know what's going on. But having an actual vote more frequently might be helpful too.
Excuse me,
Vote from
Mr. Chair.
whom? I'm
If
a
I
little
may, through this
confused.
chair here, and I don't usually like to do this, but I think this is what I'm hearing, Tim. One is incorporating routes. That's point number one, is to incorporate a segment.
Right,
That's one.
which is kind of an
Two-
update to the language.
Two is to make it abundantly clear that it is, we have it as presenting for their consideration, but it's actually for their decision,
Yeah.
right? So consideration and decision are very different. So the select board decision, which would, to the public, would prove that we're not making the decision, we're making recommendations.
Okay.
And then three, I also like your third point, which is really your second, which was the presenting segments for decisions. And we are ready to present the segments as opposed to having a complete package.
Is that a fair summary?
Yeah.
So that's not, none of those are in here. So I would second.
Okay, so I would just go back to Elaine to see if she captured those three phrases. Thank you. Okay, so Eric,
I think that
Yeah,
You had a question?
no, I just had a couple comments. So what I like everything I'm hearing. I think, what Jamie had to say, what Tim had to say, it's all going to be very useful, for the select board to make decisions. What I would like as a select board member, and as you know, you say, we're going to be deciding on, you know, which segment routes we should use. So we would also I would like to know, like, what is the pros and cons of each segment? What is the opposition? What is the,
it's a good idea.
why would we go this way? Why would we not go this way? Right? Because we're going to have to say, okay, someone's not going to be happy because we're going to pick a certain route. And we just need to know what's the lesser of two evils,
good, I like that.
right?
Eric, you're next.
I would recommend that we either expand this committee or reorganize it to include a designee of the school board. A very large part of our trail goes through a very large part of their property. And people that use our trail, including the students in the schools, will interact with each other very dramatically. I mean, very often, how do you get there? Well, you get down the trail and you hop off at Hoffman School or whatever. So I think that they are our biggest potential partner in the trail, and they have no say, or, you know, they're operating the way the most of the town is, wondering what we're doing.
No, that's a
So-
great point.
That would be my thing.
Well, thank you. Okay, it looks like we're gonna go around the table. This is a good discussion, Jim.
Can I have seconds?
Mhm.
So the segments, that's, you know, great to put the word segment in here and change that. Unless I'm missing something, I've always looked at this as segments because we've always had these phases. So I'm not sure when it was all just one starting here and ending here, and we're gonna go to select board with one long route. That must have been before my time, because we've always talked about phases in our case, which is segments. And we've looked at things in segments, and we've done the feasibility work to get to the point where we can look at a segment and determine the feasibility, and then do the pre-engineering so we can evaluate the cost of that. All part of the ultimate feasibility. As to whether it's a paved trail or it's made out of something else, I mean, in my mind, multi-use means to be used by anybody walking, you know, crawling, whatever they're doing, non-motorized things. So that would include a wheelchair, that's self-propelled, road bikers and everybody else. Now, whether it's paved or not, I mean, I'm open to all the options on that. As for the Hayden Row section, I don't recall ever voting to say the committee wants to use this route that we looked at down Hayden Row. Did we ever vote on that?
No.
We vote.
We didn't vote on it.
No, excuse me. We voted in February to put it on hold.
But first we voted to explore feasibility, right?
Yes.
This is appropriate.
Yep. And
We
then
did some exploring, there's probably more exploring to do. We got feedback, It may or may not still be feasible, but we decided to forego any additional study or engineering on that segment and move on to another segment.
Correct.
So I don't know how this came down to it's this or that. And in that regard, I know we did feasibility work on that, so-called, east of Hayden Road. This feasibility work on whatever alternatives are being discussed isn't done. Do we know that we have access easements and all that stuff on that alternate route that I hear about?
I think that's
We
one
don't,
of
do
the,
we?
we don't,
Yeah,
we
okay.
do not know.
So I don't know how you can say, throw this away and let's take this one when this one, we don't know if it works. This one, we've set it aside and thrown it away because someday.
Someday it might
Looking-
work, because just because something doesn't look feasible right now, doesn't mean 2 years down the road that somebody's not going to
I
decide
just, I mean,
to
I don't get
give us
how-
an easement or sell us their property.
I just don't get how all this, for lack of 1,000 other terms, hatred came from. But I like the idea of making sure that we say segments. I like the idea of reporting out to the select board at some frequency. Oh, and by the way, that's my last point. As liaison from Conservation Commission, if there's any discussions here or any interest of the Concom that's being explored, I go to Concom and I report to them what we're talking about. Eric goes to CPC and reports to CPC. Cynthia goes to Parks and Rec and reports. We have a select board liaison that I've always assumed is reporting to the select board. This is what the Upper Cal Trail Committee is doing. So I'm not bothered by us not going in front of the select board every month because they have a liaison that's supposed to be reporting to. All right, that's it. I don't think any thirds.
Sin, would you like to add something?
I don't think I have anything to add.
Eli, would you like to add something?
I think it's dangerous to approve segments one at a time when you don't have an overall plan. So because you don't know how they're going to connect. So I disagree with going to the select board on a segment by segment basis. I think you could firm up your plans. But you need to wait until you have an overall road before you develop your approval.
If I could add on to that before I go back to Scott. One of the reasons we were quite a ways into the ENF before, that's when the pushback started. The environmental notification plan. We had an overall plan route from Hopkinton State Park to the Milford parking lot. It's a conceptual plan. It was never designed, we never got to that point. The reason why we are required to submit an ENF to the, I believe it's the DOT, or the DEP, one of the state agencies, is because they take a look at the whole conceptual plan from a wetlands perspective. And when you're planning a trail, this magnitude, you cannot surpass a certain amount of wetlands issues. So that's one of the other challenges we have when we're looking at this whole broad picture, is that we have to be aware of the wetlands and will it work? They would then take a look at the proposed ENF and they would come back with feedback to the town. And they would say, no, you can't do this right there. This is a problem in this area, or that's a problem in that area. You have to take it back and look at it again. So it's just one step in a process. It doesn't mean that we were any closer to getting our work. We were a lot closer to getting our work done, but it was just another step in this process. What happened in this process is we never got to do this because we listened. We had our public meeting and the public said, no, we do not like what this ENF looks like. We were supposed to take that to the select board at that time, but we said, no, there's some issues with this. We're getting feedback from the public that say they don't like, and it was specifically the Hayden Row. So we never submitted that ENF to the select board for their approval so that we could then go to the state for their just overall process. It wasn't going to say that they were going to approve it or not approve it. They were just going to give a summary assessment of wetlands delineations. That was it at that point. So, to your point, you have to have an overall conceptual plan of a trail of this magnitude. And I think we have a pretty good idea in conceptual and probably 10,000 foot. Where we're getting bogged down is when we get down to, you know, more specific areas. And we tried to be sensitive to that, but somehow it got twisted that we weren't listening. But in fact, I feel that we were trying our best at the time. Anyway, moving on, I just wanted to piggyback on that total roots concept. Scott, do you have anything else that you want to add? Jamie? Eric?
No.
Okay, Bob, before I jump to you.
No.
Okay, Ken?
So I'm not really sure any longer what Eli said, except it has to do with the wisdom of doing separate segments or not. I think in some places, separate segments are justified, but in other places they are not. Along the lines of kind of what he said. You know, there are cases where it may not make sense to do a segment, because if you did so, it would preclude other decisions that haven't been made yet. So in those cases, you don't want to decide on a segment ahead of time. And the wetlands, similar thing like that. But there are other cases where I think that if we stop ourselves from constructing any segment at all anywhere before we have a whole trail, we're just never going to get anything done, and we might as well stop now. I just don't think, I think that it may be possible eventually to do the trail, but if we constrain ourselves from doing any constructions until we have a complete route, then I think we're also saying we're never going to construct the trail. Or any part of it even. There are parts of it, I think, that could stand alone by themselves, and we've got to be careful as to which segments those are.
Okay, so I think we're getting a little off. I don't know, maybe that's helpful to the select board. Just leave it as it is. Tim, do you have any other thoughts on six? Okay. So, Irfan, do you have any last comments for your board?
Yes, I do. Because Jamie, thanks for reminding me about the ENF and how this is going to be looked at by the state. The state is not going to, DEP is not going to approve each segment. They will need to see what is the whole plan in order to get through MIPA. So while you're looking, I mean, I guess when you're looking at the segments would need to be presented as part of a broader plan that would have all these other things. Now, if you're just talking about what you're going to report back to the select board, I think the select board is different from DEP. So I think the select board would be interested in knowing, what are each segments going to go and how would they connect ultimately. But you can present each segment and say, the other segments would be, under this option, they could go that way, and this option, they go that way. So this is just for presentation to the select board. At a certain point, we're going to pick a route. When we pick the route, that's when we need to file the ENF, because we need to know what are the MIPA implications. So as far as how to change the charge, again, I liked everything that Jamie had to say about quantifiable and measurable, actions. And I like the idea of looking at the various segments that are being presented. So I guess that would be how, and the pros and cons of each option.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sin.
Thank you. Question for Irfan. In terms of reporting, however often or under what circumstances that would be, I wonder if it should be the select board that sets the metrics that Jamie was talking about. The select board says, when you come before me, I want to know what you've spent, what you got out of that, what you learned, or whatever the metrics might be. Perhaps that's a discussion among the select board as to what will best inform your decision-making. So maybe there are specific things that are not written here. This is the worker, this is the hole diggers thing, but you need to tell us.
So I think the discussion right now is, and I'm sorry, I have to run off to calm the baby, but so maybe I missed some stuff, but I think the discussion right now is about what is the Upper Charles Trail Committee going to recommend to the select board as far as changes to the charter? Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Okay, so under those, so I mean, I don't think I need to answer the question. I think, these would be recommendations that you'd say, here's what we think we ought to do to address the vote of the public meeting. So to give more confidence in the town. Yeah, so I mean, as far as how often would you report? Whatever you think is appropriate. This is your recommendation to the select board. What I may want may be different from what everyone else wants, and how many times you want to report. So, but this is your recommendation. I'm sorry, I have to step away. Baby's crying.
Okay, thank you.
One more
Sorry.
thing, I promise, real brief.
Sure.
We have always met an open meeting. We've always had an agenda that's published, just like every other committee, commission, and board in town. We've never said, turn somebody away, you can't be here and ask questions or listen to what we're saying, so.
I don't think that's ever been a question.
Well, no, but I hear that, all this stuff comes as a surprise to some people. No one knew what we were talking about. We're not transparent and everything else. It's an open meeting.
Absolutely.
What's going on? Show up.
Right, I
It's not
agree.
me.
I agree that you're very transparent, and all you got to do is pay attention and listen. But in the discussion of what are we trying to recommend, what would the Trails Committee be recommending to the select board? That's where I'm coming from. So as far as
Upper Charles
if you
Trail
think-
Committee.
if you think it would be better to have the Trails Committee report to the select board, then that's you can make that suggestion.
Excuse me, could you keep saying Trails Committee? Do you mean
Upper Charles
Trail?
Upper
Or
Charles Trail Committee. Sorry.
have you already given us to the Trails Committee already?
No. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry.
Okay, stay tuned. He's coming back. Part. Okay, anyone else? I mean, this has been a good discussion. I appreciate everybody. Okay, the next one, as you know, the CPC awarded us a letter for segment 1. This is what we talked about for at least a year and a half. So now it's just time to make a recommendation to the town manager to move forward with the VHB contract to do this segment of the work, segment 1.
So moved.
A second.
A second.
As, will second. Okay, now a discussion.
Through the chair?
Yes.
Has this contract been made available to the members to look at it?
It's our recommendation.
No, the contract itself.
Yeah, the scope of work went through, when was it?
I just don't remember seeing it. It came here.
Yeah.
Has anybody,
I haven't looked at it recently, I can say.
the VHB
Well-
contract for segment one? I'm wildly in favor of segment 1.
Sure.
Everybody knows that.
Well, the scope of
but-
work we had to propose, and I don't know where it is right now, but it was well over a year ago, I will believe.
Okay, so
We
the board
talked
was on
about
the
this.
membership, the
It
contract.
was
is a
put
year
together
old.
by the town
Yeah,
by
it was by the
engineering and the
engineers
town.
in the town.
engineer.
Dave Del Torrio, they do the scope of work. We tell them what we want to do. And they put it into, the language. Oh, there's that little baby. Okay.
This is the guy who's creating all the
Recommendation,
fuss.
she'd be allowed to vote.
Yeah, I know.
Does that answer your question?
The first part of my question, yes. So if it was over a year ago, that they wrote the contract. I think it'd be amazing, but that sounds like pre-COVID, that they still honor all those terms is pretty amazing. But I would actually,
It wasn't
like to see,
pre-COVID.
It wasn't
okay,
pre-COVID.
so over a year ago, I guess we're in 2023, yes, thank you. So time has been still for me apparently. But I would like personally to see the details of it, to see exactly what they're gonna deliver. Because again, being fully honest and transparent to you guys, when VHB comes to our meetings and puts things up on the screen and shows bits and pieces, I don't see the underlying detail behind it, and I don't see what went into it and what they committed to. So us as making a recommendation, we're making a recommendation and voting on it. I want to see what I'm voting on to see what they're delivering, so we can hold them accountable, regardless of who it is. It's just a.
You understand what this is?
It is, yes, I believe I do, Eric. I'll play it to you and you tell me if I do. Is that okay? So I believe we're being asked to vote on whether we're recommending to the town manager to move forward with a contract for VHB to do engineering and design work on segment 1. It's a contract that exists. Is that correct?
We are recommending to the town manager to execute what this committee submitted to the CPC committee, who reviewed it in meeting and then took it to town meeting, and the town approved it. And we're just saying,
Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I'm not saying not to spend the money that we're awarding. I'm suggesting that if we're recommending to engage and sign a contract with a third party, I would like to see the contract itself.
Okay, so first of all, we don't sign any contract. It's
No,
the
we're
town manager.
making a recommendation for the town
Right.
manager to sign a contract. And it's deliverables that we're hinging on, that we will be able to use to our benefit.
that was made by his town engineer who works directly for him. And it's given him, or could give him at any moment, all the details of the contract. Clearly, they've discussed it. That's why we have a letter for him saying, should he go forward? And I vote yes.
I personally would just like to see the details of the contract. I'd like to know what they're doing.
Noted, okay,
If there's a
noted.
contract,
Don't
it's public
worry, I'm
record,
sure he'll
then
show
I can provide that.
There was-
Okay, so
Yeah, nothing.
Scott,
Yes,
Like, I said, if there is a contract, it will be public record, and I can
Mhm.
find out and provide
if
that.
you could, I appreciate that. But I can't vote on something I don't know what I'm voting
okay,
on. That's,
that's
I
fine.
know I'm voting in favor of one and spending the money, Eric, absolutely. But I can't vote in favor of signing a contract that I don't know what's in. That's all.
Okay, I hear you. Okay, so any more discussion?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Scott on that. I'd like to look at the contract again. The dollar amount is the 54,000 one? Is that right, Eric?
Yes.
So at least that.
You understand, the article was passed at town meeting.
Yeah, so the town
Or the
meeting
CPC to
members,
spend that money,
So anyway,
to grant that
contract.
money.
To grant the money, but not necessarily against a blind contract. In my blind.
No, based on what
We have a-
CPC
we
was
have
presented.
whatever we presented to
Whatever we
CPC.
presented to.
We don't, CPC doesn't vote on blind things.
Over a year.
I'm sorry, wrong term.
Well, or ambiguity, we don't vote on.
Okay, so the CPC has reviewed the VHB contract or
Correct.
some,
Not the.
Whatever.
when you say the contract, you mean the scope of work or the contract itself?
I'm talking about the contract.
We have, I assume we use a
We have
standard.
engineers.
It was
Who
in
wrote
the
the contract.
application for the CPC, whatever it was.
Well, no, CPC doesn't look at the not the
Right.
legal contract, the work scope we did. The legal contract, that's up to,
That's up to the town manager.
somebody over here.
We have a motion.
Upstairs.
There is-
Any other discussion? Thank you for that clarification. But yeah, and so also there was a CPC application that we had to submit to CPC that also further explained it.
Yeah, I voted in
Based
favor. I
on that.
voted in favor of that paragraph. The
Right.
scope of work was a paragraph.
Right. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. We've had a discussion. We'll start over there with Jim. How do you vote?
Just go for it.
Can I just ask if we
Yeah.
put, I know what segment one is, everybody here might know, can we put the
Oh, I'm
record
sorry, yes.
what segment one is?
This is it's a very pre-feasibility study. It's not an in-depth one, but it's deeper than the one that we already did. So this would be the next stage, and we'd probably have to come back for yet another one. So it starts at Hopkinton State Park and comes through
the property that, DCR owns. Then it goes into Legacy Farms open space. It comes down and to the town-owned property. That, and then first it goes through the International Marathon Museum property. And then it stops at East Main Street. So,
So we know, we all know
It's
what that
very-
segment is that
yeah.
we're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah, that's.
East Main to Hopkins State Park is a
Exactly.
easy way, okay.
yeah.
Then back to the vote, I vote yes.
I got a question.
Oh,
Question.
Also, does the contract, for example, require VHB to mark anything on the ground, or are they gonna?
No, this is all linear.
So basically, they've got the boilerplate
We'll
here.
make sure we'll address
For
that.
$54,000, they're just gonna import the boilerplate they got for the other segments and say, "No, here we did it."
Ken, I would suggest that it's similar to the $58,000 that the Trails Committee got to do their linear work. Whatever. But anyway, thank you for that comment, Ken. Any other comments before we, Cynthia vote? Yes.
Yes,
Eli, Scott,
I'm in favor of segment one, but I have a difficult time voting for, deliverables that I can't see, so I'm gonna say, abstain.
okay, fair
Yes.
enough. James, yes, Bob,
Yes,
Ken,
Abstain.
okay. How do you vote? Irvine votes yes.
Yeah, one or two.
How about your little girl?
Is that a half a vote? What is
Little
that?
boy.
I can't
He
say.
votes for playing with the computer and sticking it in his mouth.
Okay, thank you everyone for that. Review of the minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes? Of, April 27 that was in the packet.
On page 2, there's a spelling error. It says UTCT.
Yeah, I thought I was just. Chamber committee within the project radiation.
Where is it again? James?
Page 2,
Page 2.
all
Halfway,
caps, bottom paragraph.
oh, bottom paragraph, thank you.
That was a red herring from the lane.
I do, no, I do.
Through the chair, one change that I'm shocked that Jamie didn't recommend, which was in the very first sentence under item 2, the committee reviewed red line comments from Jamie Ronco on the most recent. I would, like to ask that we put the date.
Wow. You're so right. What do you think?
Does it have?
What is it?
Yeah, that's not.
Yes. We have to.
So
we have
it's
to-
undated.
That's why I didn't put
Yeah.
color.
Undated.
I'll see if it has anything wrong.
Put the word undated.
Darn it. Okay.
You would put the word
I got
undated.
it. I thought I said it was one in point.
Well, that's the date that that
It
he
was
sent
February
it.
something.
Like, that was when he
I
sent
thought it was
it.
a month earlier on. But
I'll check.
I didn't bring my report.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, we're trying.
Yeah, hard.
Okay, anything else?
February 7th is when I responded to the.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with. Is February's 27 was the red line item.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Okay.
Well, we got information.
Oh, roll call, okay.
Yes. Aye.
Jim, Cynthia. Eli,
yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Aye.
Jane is a yes. Bob,
I wasn't at that meeting,
Extended.
but I would, so I would vote yes, but.
you can vote, Brett. It just means that you acknowledge that.
You can vote.
There was a
on minutes
meeting
if you
and-
All
are
right, I vote yes.
Aware of.
All right, Ken.
I vote yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Oh, Irfan. Oh, he's back. Irfan, how do you vote on the minutes? Yes, okay. All right, thank you. All right, now, before I entertain a motion for adjournment, I would just like to take a minute to thank Cynthia for all of your hard work for the past 2 years.
I'm very active.
We are so
We have a great guest
going to
speaker.
miss you so much, and I wish that we had joined up earlier. But anyway, we have this little card
That's
for
very
you,
sweet.
signed
Thank
by
you.
everybody.
That's
And
great.
you want to just hand that down?
I'm confident somebody will always have an email address or something.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well,
Or you-
I'll
and
look
then
at
you'll-
this at home.
Or
Thank
when
you.
you have
Okay.
the TikTok page too.
I stay away from social media. It's
Thank you.
too cool.
Let me make a comment.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
dear.
No adjournment, because
Cynthia and I served together on the Aspenok Weeds Committee. And Cynthia was a driving force, became chair, and literally was the organizational structure of that committee, in my opinion. The opening came for a Parks and Rec person to join this committee. And I went to Jane and I said, at all costs, find a way to get Cynthia from Parks and Rec, because she's a worker, she's a doer, and should be a great asset to the committee. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
she's a thinker and.
Good committee member, team member.
Yes.
Don't agree with much of you, but we get things done together. We always do.
Should have put her on the boat ramp.
Well, we did that too. We got that lake divided into 13 different segments,
Yeah.
and each one is analyzed individually for what's going on in it.
I see here.
We address each one as appropriate.
Yeah. Great.
All right.
Thank you all.
With that,
Can I ask a question?
yes,
So we talked tonight about revising the charge. How are we gonna affect that? Are we gonna?
that's going to go in the minutes. We'll send the minutes to the select board and they can.
We're gonna revise,
No, no, that's a,
You all expecting us to submit a revised
no, I don't think so. They were asking
or
for
comments
thoughts.
and then you'll
Comments.
revise it?
So Mark and I are coming up with a kind of framework for how to proceed. So part of it is getting the feedback from this committee, also getting feedback from the House Coordination and Management Committee.
Mhm.
And then, because they were both mentioned in the town meeting. And then also potentially surveys or public input. No, or we're gonna propose a framework to the select board to vote on, but this is a component of it.
Okay, well, great, thank you.
All right, I make the motion, we adjourn.
I'm gonna, we didn't discuss seven at all. Do we want to do that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
But the
Topics for
Oh,
future meetings.
Oh, next meeting.
I'm sorry, topics for the next meeting.
I'm not sure what they should be, like one of them should have to do with our new members that will be.
so
Is the timing correct that they will be in place by next? Meeting?
That's up to the select board
That's up to the
members.
select board.
Appointments will be in person.
So it will matter. Okay, so that doesn't have any. I wasn't sure.
They don't have another.
So.
No, we have to advertise.
Okay, so that's what that time. Okay.
And they.
Other topics for the next meeting?
No, I think a rehash of this.
Sorry, can I just continue to?
Are we working on?
yeah, let's talk about where we are, what.
Possibly.
Well, the last time-
Where we are, where we're going, how we're going forward with the public garbage stuff.
Well,
40% of the charge.
Did you calculate that?
There's 10 items and 4 of them are specifically about outreach.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
I-
All right, wow.
all right, so,
The new math.
all right, so we've got continued outreach. What other agenda item would you like to put on?
The creation of. the
Jim,
plan.
Tim, do you have something for our next meeting?
I don't, but I will say it's nice to meet in person because I can interrupt. Let the record
Do you have
reflect that
thoughts for our
everybody
next
knows
meeting?
I make a motion that he goes.
Ken,
I have nothing, just talk about.
Bob? Okay,
Well, we haven't debriefed on town meeting and the select board meeting. There was an awful lot happened.
town meeting?
Yeah, well, we didn't talk about the select board meeting, but
I thought more.
We'll do that at the next meeting. We're putting.
Okay.
I think
Of the town meeting?
the answer is, I think you probably got a flavor with the select board meeting. It's just-
Okay, we can put it on the agenda. Anything else? Eli, do you have a suggestion?
I was the webmaster of the old website, but I don't pay attention to it anymore, so the question is, do we just abandon it?
I thought we had decided to abandon that a while ago to turn that off.
Fair enough.
We did.
I don't think we ever.
No.
I thought we did.
So we discuss that next.
Yeah.
Okay,
We can
discuss
revisit that, but I thought we did.
website,
So that means that,
turn off.
oh, the old one, yeah.
People are,
Because the link is still there,
yeah,
yeah.
you search, that's one of the options.
Okay, so now Eli, you managing or Scott, you, so you're adding content and all that stuff or whatever it
I
is.
stopped
Eli's
adding content.
not managing it.
To the new one, to the one to come.
The
No, the
town,
town-
what the town IT guy,
Josh.
Josh, if we put together what we
Oh, I
want it
see.
to look like,
They'll put it
he
out.
can do it.
That's all it takes,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Piece of cake.
Can I just add that we were looking for the chart of your
Okay,
meeting
Jimmy.
for the select board meeting, and we could not find it on your website. It was only in the old website, so could we add the chart? to
Oh,
the
yes.
website?
Yeah, that would be wise.
Oh, gosh.
So
Okay.
maybe a whole
Maybe we-
topic, update new website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, that's a big one.
Before closing the old one, strip anything out of the old one. and then-
I will spend the time researching.
That's regular.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so we'll talk about, that will come into the conversation of the old website and then town website, okay? Anything else?
Excuse me, the chair, I'll just say that community outreach is on the agenda. Please email me, send me notes, ask questions. You know, I'd really like to get momentum on the community outreach, the list of community organizations that people are assigned to. If you have any questions about who you're assigned to, if you want to volunteer for some, let me know.
Do you
It's
want
typically separately.
to, send out that list to me and I can get it to the members
I
as
can
a
send it again,
reminder?
Sure.
That this is what you signed up
Send it,
for
I
4
can
months
send that
ago?
again. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And I'll
And
get it to
through the
everybody.
chair, can I check with Scott? Are you going to move ahead or do anything with the survey that I sent you 2 weeks?
I sent, did I send you the comments and notes or did we talk?
No,
Oh, we
you
never
just
had
said
that.
you were
Yeah,
gonna
we had
wait
our
for
meeting.
town
Okay.
meeting.
We're
Yeah.
gonna save it for a meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll send.
or work
um,
with someone else.
Okay,
or-
does someone else want to volunteer to be Cynthia, and work with me on the survey?
Yeah,
I can try somebody else, Tim. you
and
can do that?
also send it
Tim,
to
do
you.
you want to? Okay,
Tim.
thanks.
Yeah. And that's.
It's
the
for the
one-
senior center, survey.
Well, that's.
That's one of the
It's
items.
the idea to send out to like groups and
Yeah.
to, personalize for
Thanks.
whom you send, but, because I feel like I have done stuff and
Yeah.
have taken steps and there's always a stop,
Right,
you know,
they want it in that form, yeah.
yeah, that all of a sudden I'm ready to go with something and
Cool.
it's.
Well, don't leave.
You're putting up blocks. So if we're gonna do it, let's do it. Or,
Right, because we approve it in the
Yeah.
full meeting, right? Yeah.
We also want to check in.
but.
So Jean, if you want to put that on the
Scott
agenda, you
has
can.
asked- Scott has asked
Survey.
us to send him the stuff, so.
That would
Oh, I
be,
thought you and I were a working group and we're supposed to bring it back to the meeting.
No, that's the survey thing.
Yeah.
Scott, can that go into the
Anyway.
public
I thought you were
outreach?
talking about the survey.
I'm talking about other stuff also that I, sent you to add to the list and
Like,
other groups, like the mountain bike group.
yep, that's on the list.
Yep.
That was on our list.
You added it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we all need to see it.
I know that.
I sent it out, but I'm gonna send it through here.
Okay.
We'll update it or review it at the next meeting. Okay, and if, as always, if you get individual thought about topics for the next agenda, you can send it to me, okay? All right, there's been a motion made in the second, did I hear second to adjourn?
Yes, he did.
Jim did.
I think I might have. Listen.
Peter,
Jane, you invited me to attend this meeting specifically.
well,
Did you have a reason for inviting me to this meeting, or was this just?
I'm sorry you didn't get my other email right after the one I invited you that changed the agenda. And I suggested that a further
There was no
meeting.
Additional
Oh.
agenda sent, and there was no email that said anything about other than just.
I'll resend the email. I'm sorry you missed it. It's on the, I sent it to, both your town chair and your Peter Luke underscore.
I got one email from you saying attend. this meeting.
Since it's here and we haven't voted to adjourn.
That motion's on the table.
It's good. Yeah, I don't-
All right, I'm sorry, Peter, for the confusion.
Can we hear from him?
Was there an agenda item?
No, there wasn't an agenda item.
You can't,
No, there wasn't on, it
you have to
wasn't.
do a roll call vote.
Okay, Irfan. We're voting to adjourn.
Can't hear you.
Voting to adjourn, yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Sim, yes, Eli, Scott,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jane's a yes, Bob,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, adjourn.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Roll. Good night. Thank you.
And you're
Yeah, no, it's like mothers.
Well, yeah. And responded. Yeah.
Oh, it's still light out. All right.
Yeah.
When you're not-
Yeah.